The Panama Canal is a vital artery of global commerce, connecting the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans and saving ships weeks of travel. For over a century, it's been a critical conduit for the world's goods. Everything from oil to electronics passes through its locks daily. The canal underpins global supply chains, especially for the United States, where nearly 40% of container traffic relies on this narrow channel. It's the main route for moving goods from Asia to the US East Coast, and for exporting American products to Pacific markets. The US military also depends on the canal for rapid naval deployment, making it a cornerstone of American defense strategy. Any disruption sends shockwaves through the economy and security apparatus. The 2016 expansion for larger ships only increased its importance, accommodating the massive vessels that drive today's trade. There are no easy alternatives. Routes around South America or through the Suez Canal are far longer and more expensive. This makes the canal a single point of failure in the global system. The sudden closure in May 2025 was a stark reminder of this vulnerability, instantly throwing global trade into chaos. The world learned just how fragile this linchpin of commerce truly is. The canal's smooth operation can no longer be taken for granted. On May 15, 2025, the US Department of Defense abruptly ordered a total shutdown of the Panama Canal, citing a high-priority national security threat. The world was stunned. Thousands of ships were stranded, and global trade ground to a halt. Shipping companies scrambled to reroute vessels, facing immense costs and logistical nightmares. Oil prices surged 9% in a single day, and shipping stocks swung wildly. On the ground, confusion reigned. Unmarked vessels and low-flying aircraft had been spotted near the canal, fueling rumors of sabotage or covert operations. The Pentagon's deployment of naval assets only heightened the crisis. With little information, speculation and fear spread rapidly among local residents and international markets. The White House promised answers, but the delay only deepened anxiety. The world watched as the gears of commerce froze, caught in a mysterious geopolitical drama. The shutdown was a powerful demonstration of how quickly global stability can unravel. In the absence of clear information, theories about the canal's shutdown multiplied. Some pointed to a massive cyber attack targeting the canal's automated lock systems, potentially allowing a hostile actor to seize control. Others suspected a covert military operation, citing reports of unmarked ships and surveillance flights. A third theory suggested an environmental disaster, perhaps a toxic spill from a hazardous cargo. Each scenario carried grave implications, highlighting the canal's vulnerability to both digital and physical threats. The lack of answers fueled global uncertainty and anxiety. The only certainty, a critical artery of the world economy had been severed, and the reasons remained shrouded in mystery. The cyber attack theory gained the most traction among experts. The canal's modernization had created new vulnerabilities. Its locks, scheduling, and water management were all linked to a central digital network. A successful hack could trap ships, disrupt operations, or even cause catastrophic accidents. For adversaries, paralyzing the canal would inflict massive economic pain on the US and its allies, without firing a shot. In 2025, with US-China tensions high, a cyber attack fit the pattern of gray zone aggression: disruptive, deniable, and deeply destabilizing. The US response, immediate shutdown, naval deployment, and secrecy, suggested a major digital breach. Investigators faced a painstaking process of digital forensics, searching for malware hidden deep in the canal's systems. The silence from Washington reflected the need for caution and the gravity of the threat. The shutdown was not just a logistical crisis, but a warning shot in a new era of digital conflict. The world had witnessed the vulnerability of its most critical infrastructure. The shutdown unfolded amid rising US-Panama tensions. President Trump's 2025 inauguration brought a hardline stance, accusing Panama of ceding control of the canal to China, and vowing to take it back. Secretary of State Marco Rubio amplified these claims, pointing to Chinese-linked companies operating port facilities at both canal entrances. The US framed the canal as a strategic asset in its rivalry with Beijing, fueling suspicion and mistrust. Panama's President Mulino firmly rejected US accusations, insisting the canal remained under Panamanian control and was managed neutrally. He ordered an audit of Chinese-managed port operations, but refused to discuss altering canal control, citing international treaties. Experts largely sided with Panama, noting that Chinese companies provided port services, not canal operations. Despite this, the US continued to press its case, deepening the rift. The historically cooperative relationship between the two countries was replaced by suspicion and confrontation. The canal became a flashpoint in great power competition. The May shutdown was the culmination of months of escalating rhetoric and distrust. The crisis exposed the fragility of international agreements in the face of geopolitical rivalry. The canal's sovereignty was now at the center of a global power struggle. The economic shock from the canal's closure was immediate and severe. Energy markets were hit first. Oil and LNG prices spiked as shipments from the U.S. Gulf Coast to Asia were cut off. Shipping companies faced chaos. Those trapped by the closure saw their stock prices tumble, while others on alternative routes saw profits soar. The cost of shipping a container from Asia to the U.S. East Coast more than doubled overnight. The shutdown exposed the fragility of just-in-time supply chains, threatening production lines and emptying store shelves. U.S. businesses were hit hardest, with 40% of container traffic dependent on the canal. Agricultural exporters faced rotting harvests, while importers struggled with shortages and inflation. The event forced companies to rethink supply chain strategies, considering diversification and reshoring. The crisis was a stark lesson in economic geography. U.S. prosperity depends on infrastructure far beyond its borders. The world saw how a single choke point could disrupt the entire global economy. The shutdown's ripple effects will be felt for years. The canal's vulnerability became a global concern overnight. At the heart of the crisis was the question of sovereignty. The Torrijos-Carter Treaties of 1977 transferred control of the canal to Panama, with a key provision neutrality for all nations, in peace and war. But the treaties also allow U.S. intervention to defend the canal's neutrality, a clause open to interpretation. The Trump administration's rhetoric and the unilateral shutdown were seen by many as a challenge to Panamanian sovereignty. The U.S. naval deployment sent a chilling message. Despite the transfer of control, America still viewed the canal as within its sphere of influence. This action risked alienating regional partners and reviving old grievances about U.S. interventionism. Adversaries like China and Russia seized on the crisis to portray the U.S. as an imperial power. The international response was swift, calls for transparency and a return to normal operations under international oversight. The crisis quickly escalated from a bilateral dispute to a global incident. The trust that underpinned the canal's operation was badly damaged. The world was forced to confront who truly guarantees the security of strategic choke points. The canal's future as a neutral, reliable artery was now in question. By late July 2025, the canal had reopened, but the world had changed. The shutdown shattered the illusion of reliability and exposed deep vulnerabilities in global trade. Nations and companies began investing in alternative routes, land corridors, Arctic passages, and the Suez Canal. Businesses shifted from just-in-time to just-in-case supply chains, prioritizing resilience over efficiency. Diplomatically, the U.S. faced damaged trust in Latin America and emboldened rivals. The crisis sparked calls for new international oversight to prevent unilateral shutdowns. The Panama Canal shutdown may be remembered as a turning point, a moment when digital threats and great power rivalry became terrifyingly real. The world learned that interconnectedness brings both prosperity and profound risk. The challenge now is to build a more resilient, secure global system. The quiet passage of ships through Panama can no longer be taken for granted. It must be actively protected by a vigilant global community.